Hey guys, welcome back to More English with Dry. Today we're going to be taking a look at the character of Lady Macduff in Shakespeare's eponymous tragedy, and we're going to be considering to what extent she can be considered as a victim, to what extent she is an outspoken character who advances the plot and ideas surrounding gender and loyalty, and to what extent we can consider her as being in some way a foil for Lady Macbeth. Now, the first thing to note is that Lady Macduff features in only one scene in the play. In Act 4, Scene 2, we see her in her castle, lamenting the fact that her husband has abandoned her, and describing to what extent she considers him to be some kind of traitor for this. Eventually, she is murdered by Macbeth's men, who appear instructed by him to go around the country, murdering anyone who they consider to be forcing some kind of opposition against him. In the scene, we see her interact with her son and muse on the nature of fatherhood and the fact that he has been abandoned by Macduff as well. Now, this scene is key because in the main action of the play, it can often be considered the one where Macbeth truly becomes a tyrant. Lady Macduff and her son pose absolutely no threat to him or his crown, and yet he has them brutally slaughtered anyway. This suggests that even in his own warped logic, there is no justification behind the act other than pure, tyrannical, murderous intent. At this point, his paranoia is so great that he decides to do this instead of perhaps acting in a more rational course. Banquo, of course, as well as Fleance and Duncan, of course, could be justified as murders inside his own internal logic. Lady Macduff, however, serves no threat to him, and as such this can be considered to be the turning point and the point at which he can be considered truly insane. Macduff's absence is one that it takes away any kind of power from Lady Macduff. He goes to England to join up with Malcolm, who is amassing an army. His brother Donald Bane joins from Ireland, and this is the force that will ultimately come to try and tackle Macbeth and take the crown back for the rightful heir to the throne. However, in doing so, he does not in any way consider what will happen to his wife. She can be therefore read as a totally powerless character, one who is completely incapable of defending herself, particularly without her husband. In such a way, she conforms to traditional gender stereotypes about women, and this is something that she becomes acutely aware of. She is aware of the limitations that society imposed upon her gender, and she is sad about the fact that she has no agency or control over her own fate. Her role as a wife is also denied from her at this point. Macduff's flight to England literally and figuratively strips her of the position of wife. In this way, she resembles Lady Macbeth in a great way, for she is removed of the role of wife, mainly figuratively, by Macbeth ignoring her and refusing to confide any more in her. In this way, she can be considered as someone who actually represents what Lady Macbeth goes through in quite a profound and real way. However, we must consider at this point what a foil is, for this is a literary device that is very worth talking about in your own essays. In literature, a foil is a character who's presented as a contrast to a second character in order to highlight or emphasize the differences between them. As a basic example, someone who is very tall, when positioned next to someone very small, appears to be even taller. So therefore, Shakespeare uses Lady Macduff as a foil for Lady Macbeth. We can see this as well in something like An Inspector Calls, and consider how the inspector is used as a foil for Arthur Burling. If we take this idea forward, that Lady Macduff is actually very different from Lady Macbeth, we can see an even more interesting analysis that could be used in an essay. Lady Macduff famously says, "His flight was madness. When our actions do not, our fears do make us traitors." While Lady Macbeth believes that her husband will be too full of the milk of human kindness to murder Duncan, Lady Macduff believes that her husband is cruel towards them for leaving them defenceless. She openly questions his lack of judgment and implies what happens to them is his fault. In this way, we can consider them similar. However, it is a different genre of blame that one puts upon their husband as to the other. Lady Macduff says to her son, who is conversing with her in this scene, "Fathered he is, and yet he's fatherless." While Lady Macbeth comments that she would dash the brains out of her own child if she had sworn to do so, Lady Macduff embodies the nurturing side of motherhood. In her early scene, we see her interact closely with her son, and lament and fear the fact that he is going to suffer a horrible and painful death without Macduff there to protect him. One of the most subversive things she does is call her husband a traitor. In this way, she's the moral opposite of Lady Macbeth. For while she criticised her husband to help in motivating him to murder the king, Lady Macduff's criticism of her husband is to question his loyalty to her and chastise him for selfishly pursuing his own goals rather than protecting his family. Therefore, she questions the nature of loyalty as being one that should exclusively be to the family as opposed to anything else. Hope you find this video helpful. Make sure to stay tuned for more videos on Macbeth. Goodbye.